talked with the school board. I shared, you have two macro issues really outside of the school district's control. And we saw them come into play in February, and they're even growing as a concern across Minnesota right now. So I don't anticipate that has gotten any better, either the economic security of the household or the property tax, the feeling on property taxes. The demographics, 28% had lived in the district for under 10 years, 25% for over 30 years. Median comes in at about 16, 17 years. The typical resident has lived in the district. 14% have preschoolers, 22% have children, and 78% do not have any children. So basically 4 out of 5 people in the district really have they're not a constituent, a direct constituent of the school district. 24% indicated they were renters. 29% indicated their home was valued under $75,000, 30% between $75,000 and $150,000, and 16% said over $150,000. Median of education is some college experience. 32% were college graduates. That includes masters and doctorates. 34% are high school graduates or less. 46% resided in Olivia, 21% Bird Island, 5% Lake Lillian, and 28% in the rest of the district. 17% owned agricultural property in the school district. And then finally on the demographics, 24% were 18 to 34-year-olds, while 45% of the sample was over the age of 55. Median on this one comes in at about 51, 52 years. So it's also an older district. Women outnumbered men by 2%. And the first macro issue is at the bottom. And this question asks folks about their expenses and their income. Back in February, 58% indicated they were financially stressed, 40% financially comfortable. To give you an idea, before the pandemic, the norm on financial stress in outstate Minnesota was about 31, 32%. So we've almost doubled. This is the high that we have right now. In April, my norm right now is 55%. It's a high since the pandemic started. And to give you an idea of where it could go with the recession, in 2008, 2009, 65% of Minnesotans said they were financially stressed. So that is the macro issue. And it's not only facing your district, it's facing every school district considering a referendum or levy this year. Overall quality of education, 74% rated it positively, excellent or good. 20% said only fair or poor, and 6% were unsure. It's right at the norm. The norm is about 80%, a little bit underneath the norm for quality of education. What differentiates school districts in Minnesota is the excellent rating. That 15%, the norm right now is about 12%. That has been cut in half since because as a result of the pandemic. Norm before was 25%. And so what we're seeing is this overall concern. For the most part, people haven't gone unfavorable on the quality of education. They've softened from the excellent to good category because there are so many concerns coming out of the pandemic. What do they like most about the district? 27% indicated teachers, 12% sports, and then a lot of things came in single digits. If we combine the variety of programs and broad curriculum, that would be 14%, like what's being taught, the programs being taught in the school district. But your folks had a lot of different things. That's why we have such a large 16% in the scattered category, a lot of idiosyncratic things that only came in at 1 or 2% that I just collapsed down into the scattered category. If we ask what do they like most, we follow up with what's the most serious issue facing the school district. And once again, this is open-ended, so they can tell us anything, and we collapse them down into categories based on their number one answer. You don't have anything that hits 25, 30, 35%, where 1 and 3, 1 and 4 are coalescing around a response. You do have a sizable concerned with facilities needs. 1 in 5 off the top of their mind brought up facilities needs. And keep in mind that this is at the start of the survey. We haven't talked about anything. So there is an awareness among a portion of the community that there are some facilities needs. 16% talked about the lack of funding. 12% talked about the lack of discipline, 10% staff shortages. Both discipline and staff shortages are up 3 times what they were last year as a concern. Then we have some things in single digits for poor spending to free school meals, enrollment growth. But at the start, about 1 in 5 are thinking, when they think about the district, they're thinking about facilities needs. Looking at the demographics, the majority, the statistically significant portion of that group are households containing children attending the district. Some perceptions on the district. Does the district spend taxpayers' money effectively and efficiently? 69% agreed with that. That's over 10% higher than the norm. Do folks receive a good value for the investment? 75% indicated that they did. That's down about 10 points for the norm, but that's going to be driven by property taxes that we're going to see in a little bit. Have you spent past funds responsibly? Yes, 68% indicate you have. Do you ask for a property tax increase only as a last resort? 70% indicate that's the case. Does the district do a good job of involving the community? That's right at the norm. The norm before the pandemic was 75 to 80%. We've dropped down to the 65 to 70% range simply because it's more difficult to get people involved, especially coming during the pandemic when things were done virtually. And then the last question is really the first one where we can just start talking about a property tax increase. And the question is, the school district is a good investment, and I would support a property tax increase to protect that investment. We haven't told them whether it's a bond referendum or an operating levy, if it's $5 a year or $5 a month. The key on this is what's the core opposition at the outset. 35% core opposition is on the high side. Ideally, we want that less than 30% at the start. So just when you announce a referendum, you have a third that are really not willing to see a property tax increase of any sort for any purpose. Job performance ratings. The school board and the administration is basically seen as one entity, the governance and the administration side, both of them at 2 to 1, both of them right at the norm. And then the closer you get to the children, the higher the rating typically is. And we saw how strongly people felt about teachers in the district, 87% favorable. The norm on this is typically 85 to 90%. Overall evaluation of the financial management then, 61% rated favorable, 35% unfavorable, and 5% are unsure. The norm on this one is 52%. So on the financial credibility, spending taxpayers' money effectively and efficiently and responsibly, the district gets a strong grade for financial credibility. You do have the good reservoir of goodwill when it comes to finances. However, the other macro issue outside of the financial security of folks right now is the property tax hostility. You have 63% in the very high and somewhat high category. The threshold we use for a property tax hostile climate is 50% or higher than that. So you're 13 points above that. 35% indicate that it's about average. Nobody said low, and 2% were unsure. On their perception on school taxes, it pretty much mirrors their perception on total taxes. So they're not blaming the district per se for the property taxes, their issues with property taxes. It's just it's city, county, and school district all as one. But that 63% on both of these macro, you have issues coming in to play that affect people going to vote in an election. The first one on the financial insecurity, the higher that number goes, every district has a certain percent of people that would support what the district is doing, but they simply can't afford it. And so when financial insecurity grows, that the portion that just cannot afford the tax increase grows also. And when you have margins of 50-50, 1% one way or the other can make a huge difference. Also on property taxes at 63% saying they're high, you have a reflexive uh, inclination from people at the outset that they don't want to see any property tax increases, period. It doesn't matter what it's for. And so you just have this built-in resistance at the start instead of being willing to have a discussion. How do they rate the district's buildings and facilities? Well, the district split on this one. 46% rate them favorably, 43% rate them unfavorably, and 11% are unsure. You actually had a third that rated them excellent. They were more likely to be non-parents over the age of 55, while 15% rated them poorly, and they were more likely to be parents under the age of 45. So there is a divide amongst parents, and then also on the age, on the perception of the buildings and facilities. Have they been following the discussions? No, not really at all. And this is not atypical. This is what we typically see, and oftentimes boards and commissions and everything are kind of depressed when they see this because you all are living with it. But only 6% say they're following these discussions very closely. Just over a third are following them somewhat closely, and 63% are not following the discussions at all. What about classroom design? Do they believe that classroom design is important to student learning? 77% believe it's either very or somewhat important. 21% say not to or not at all. So, as a perception, basically 3 out of 4 folks understand the connection between classroom design and student learning. But the community's not in line. There's a divide on the perception of the Olivia School building being currently able to provide for sufficient flexible learning spaces. 30% say yes, 46% say no, and 25% are unsure. So on this one, this is the education piece that has to happen. Keep in mind, 4 out of 5 people do not have children. Many of them haven't been in a school building in decades. And so many districts in this situation, they do open houses and tours and everything, and they show people. I've had districts that have invite senior center program participants in to see the schools and what the classrooms actually look like in today's education, to have everybody have the same level of information. What's the predisposition at the start? 27% are against any property tax increase, 19% are for all, and 50% are persuadable. We look at this as this difference between the for all and against all, and you start out 8 points behind. And that's at the edge of a possible successful referendum. Most referendums right now are between -3 and -5. Just because when you get to the -8, you get to that level, you have to take an overwhelming percentage of the persuadables to overcome that core opposition at the start. What would be a reasonable property tax increase for facilities improvements? Well, right off, then 39% said nothing. And this goes back to what we've seen in previous charts, that 35% it just in concept were against any property tax increase. That's on the high side also. We would like that to be under 35%. But you have 4 out of 10 that are not willing to see any property tax increase. You have 26% that say $10 a month. You have 24% that say $20 a month. So the median comes in right at about $15 a month. Is that set in stone? It is not set in stone. There's an elasticity to the number, but there can also be a retraction from it. So it depends on what's being asked for. And we'll get into the specific components in a minute, and you can see the possible areas where there's elasticity up. How important is it to use the Bird Island School District? 65% indicate it's at least somewhat important. 25% say not to or not at all, and 10% are unsure. You can see only 1 in 6 view it as very important to use the Bird Island School District, and that primarily, not surprisingly, is Bird Island residents. What should be done with the Bird Island School? Well, as I mentioned to the board, this would be a pollster's nightmare. We tested 4 options, and they're all statistically significantly in a tie. 19% say early childhood space, 18% sports and performances, 24% elementary school, 15% community uses, 8% say nothing, it should be closed, and 17% were unsure. When we followed up and we asked people, would they support a property tax increase for the option they support? You have 75% supporting, 17% opposed, and 8% are unsure. But the key is, on this one, they're only supporting the property tax increase for the option they support. And there's no clear majority or even a plurality in support of one of the 4 options. We then broke out and tested a series of components and asked, would you support a property tax increase for the component? 77% would support for building infrastructure, and 75% safety and security. Overwhelmingly, 3/4 or more support for those 2 components. You also have 4 that hit the 60% level. Air conditioning at 2/3. CTE classroom space, 64%. Flexible learning spaces, 62, 61% kitchen and cafeteria space, and then improvements to Bird Island and technology infrastructure at both 59%. And so all of those, especially the top 2, would drive that $15 up as a percent for support. Because there's such high support and concept for them. The bottom 3, if the package revolved around those 3 only, I don't think you could pass a referendum for $4 a month on those, because that's the retraction when you have such strong opposition and concept. The swimming pool, 35% support. 350-seat auditorium, 32% support, and stadium and parking lots, 31% support. Where we are right now in public opinion on bond referendums, it was where we were in 2008, 2009, and 2010. Residents are willing to support have-to-haves. They're not willing to support nice-to-haves. And so when they think have-to-haves, it's actually what's happening in the classroom, and then safety and security and building infrastructure and deferred maintenance. Overall evaluation then of the improvements, 69% say they sound like a good idea, 22% a bad idea, and 9% are unsure. You have very little intensity on this, though. Only 12% feel it's a good idea strongly, only 2% a bad idea strongly. So it nets out that people overall think it's a good idea. And part of that lack of intensity for the strong good idea is those 3 components at the bottom of the last chart that only had 1/3 support. So we checked again the tax tolerance to see if there was any shift after they heard the potential uses for the funding, and there really wasn't. 39% remained and said nothing, the same as before. 28% said $10 a month. 21% said $20 a month. It actually went down a little bit for this one, simply being driven by the fact of those 3 components at the bottom: the pool, the auditorium, and the stadium. And then finally, where are folks getting their information? I shared this with the board, and communications is going to be an effort in an area of opportunity for the district to improve, because 33% say mailings, but the word of mouth is dominant. This is open-ended. They can tell us anything. And 1 in 3 people told us that their principal source of information was another person. If we combine teachers and staff, it goes to 37%. What else comes in? Local newspaper, then the district website, Facebook, social media, and then a few idiosyncratic things in the scattered category. What do people say is the most effective way to receive information? This one you always want to look at as a option versus print. Do they want something in their hands or electronic? Do they want to push a button? 35% indicate mail newsletter, 19% local newspaper. So a majority flat out want something in their hands. 14% say the website, 11% email, 9% Facebook. So 34% indicate that they would like something electronic. So both have significant portions that's their preference, and there's a clear age divide in what the preference is, with younger folks preferring electronic, older folks preferring print. What's also unusual is 1 in 10 people said the most effective way for me to receive information was from another person, the word of mouth. The grapevine is strong and it's reliable for folks. And then finally, are they satisfied with the amount of information they receive from the district? 63% say yes, but 31% indicate they get too little information from the school district. And so that's really is an opportunity for the district because the norm on this is between 10 and 15% saying too little. That's a very high number, basically a third of folks indicating they get too little information from the district. And most of them say that they rely on word of mouth. So the information's not coming from the district, it's coming from a person. And so the good news on this, with the grapevine as lush as it is, shall we say, for the district, oftentimes grapevines can be poisonous. It's not poisonous. We've seen the ratings, the atmospherics in the district, and the financial credibility on the rating of the board and the administration, on teachers, decision making, involvement, everything like that. The grapevine is positive. Okay. What's driving people's concern on a potential bond referendum is the two macro issues facing every district in Minnesota right now. And that's economic insecurity at the same time paired with property tax hostility, going back to November 15th when everybody opened their property tax statements and were surprised at the increases they saw. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, that is the last one. Finally, what's the most effective? No, this is the most effective. Is this a major source, minor source, or not a source at all? 25% indicate that they get a lot of information from informal discussions with neighbors and friends. A total of 68%. So that's the reach of the grapevine, followed by local newspapers, and then everything else in single digits as getting a lot of information from district sources. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, I guess there's no questions, Peter.
All right, no questions.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. I hope you're all having the wonderful weather we are here in the city. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, give me a second here.